Yes, Cinder, a remix of Dark Souls 3 by Rotaka. Folks, you know what that song means.
As always, I sure do.
Oh, yes.
I'm glad somebody does, because honestly, I forget from time to time. That's what happens when you get old. You forget stuff.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah, it wasn't really a joke, but I'm glad we kind of treated it as one.
Yeah, that was more like a
It's like,
mood, I
oh,
suppose.
oh no, age. How dare we? Well, welcome everybody. I'm MrBond.
I'm Tormod.
And I'm Saxxon.
Insert credits, round 82. I'm a fan. I mean, clearly, all three of us should be fans of our own show.
I
My
would
goodness.
hope so, I guess. Also, there's a fan next to me, too.
I also have a fan in my close proximity.
Excellent.
It's quite pleasant. It gets very warm in this enclosed space in which I currently reside.
I suppose it would be. It is kind of a box and all.
Yeah, it is. So what's the story behind the title since you came up with it? Just having a fan?
Well, no, but fans are great.
They are.
I was just going to complain about the whole, like, hey, I moved into a new house and nothing worked for over a week. And I had to rely on a fan in order not to die in Nashville with no HVAC.
Oh no.
So, yeah, I don't know. I couldn't really think of anything super clever this time, but I was just like, hey, let's do that thing that people, pun and meme on and just say, I'm a fan.
Oh, okay, fair. Did you put little googly eyes on your fan or something?
Unfortunately, it's not one of the kinds that you can actually see it and probably just whip them around.
Oh,
So,
I see.
yeah,
Well,
which, turning them into ballistic weapons could be a fun time, just not for me.
fair enough, I suppose. Well, housekeeping, we've already got round 83 set. That is October, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, October 9th, I want to say.
Wow, we actually did something ahead. Okay, cool.
I mean, we set up a couple ahead last time because things finally
suppose we
shook
did.
out enough that we could do such a thing.
Okay, I suppose we're looking into November then.
Yeah, given that we are now seated and all gathered for round 82, 83 being on 9th of October.
Yeah, so November is a Friday the 13th. We're obligated.
Oh, it surely is. And by that time, I will no longer have on-call, so we are very safe.
Excellent.
There we go.
Don't think I will by then. So
Okay, very good. So that would be what,
I'm
84?
gonna keep pushing that one off as long as I can.
Insert credits, round 84. Okay, we'll get that squared fully later. And then I guess do we want to finish the year out?
Yeah, we can.
December.
Why don't we try the 11th just in case things get busier toward Christmas?
That is fair. Okay, sounds good. The 11th for round 85. My goodness. I know I make a big deal about this, at least recently, every show, that's a lot of rounds. And it is. It never ceases being a lot of rounds. In fact, it's getting to be even more rounds.
As it do.
So my incredulity shall indeed grow each time we bring up the round
incremental
number.
incredulity.
That's right. Round plus equals 1 every time we meet.
True that.
Cool. So we are booked for the rest of 2020, such as the shit pile that this year has been. And that's probably good. I think we can work on 2021 later.
Yeah. Let's survive this year first.
Yeah. Let's do a little bit more housekeeping, though. You have stated that you have moved houses now. That's very good.
That's true.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I will be moving jobs very shortly,
Oh.
in a couple weeks. So that's exciting.
Neato burrito.
Very cool.
Any other, like, big, massive-ass life changes that we care to share with the internet at large? It's fine if we don't. That's
Yeah.
perfectly
I
cool.
mean, since last show, I have, I found an apartment in Madison, started my new job that's full remote, and it's been pretty awesome so far.
Very good. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes, congrats. Speaking of full remote, like, what's your new job going to be like at your heart or that place? Sorry.
No biggie. I'll beep that out in post. I won't beep it out in post. I'll
Beep.
forget. It will be full remote until such time as everything else in the world has been cleared. So, not really much change from now, which is good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so my job started at the end of July, and as I've mentioned, I'm a manager now, which is terrifying.
You
But
are the
Yeah.
man.
also, I've met one person that I work with in person so far, and that's just because I needed an actual laptop. So, yeah, everything has been just a series of Teams calls every day, and it's looking like the earliest we could possibly go back to the office is like April, because then at the beginning of next year, they decided that they're going to renovate our entire wing of the office building.
Oh,
So, yay.
well,
So
I
I'm
mean,
kind of hoping that it's full remote forever, but the downside of that is like I won't have the looking over the shoulder learning how to do things experience, which is kind of a pain. But yeah,
eh,
so
win some, lose some. Have you been at least been having like video conference, Zoom call things to see people?
yeah, for like 4 hours a day. Yeah,
Oh, okay. Well, that's a lot. I was hoping,
I'm a
like
manager.
15 minutes or something
Yeah.
just to see a human face or whatever, but
Yeah,
Yeah.
we do a little check-in thing Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays in the morning between the leadership, and it's just kind of like, hey, we still exist and we're alive, or various definitions of alive. We're all dead inside.
I mean, being alive is a real good start.
I mean, I'm no necromancer.
Yet.
No, that's true. It'd be kind of funny if you were a dead necromancer, because that'd be pretty meta. But anyway,
Can
yeah.
necromancers be vampires? Can they be undead?
Huh.
Hmm.
Now we're getting back into this whole like, was Jesus a lich thing?
I'm pretty sure he
Hmm.
was.
Pretty sure he was. Well, speaking of other cool things that I hopefully won't die from, I guess I'm kind of excited for this because I have 256 pounds of bed sitting on my front stoop that I
God.
haven't taken inside the house yet. I need to share this in chat because it's actually kind of awesome. So I bought a loft. I'm not in college, but I bought a loft, and they're like made for adults, as in they support 2,200 pounds, and they're super well constructed. Yeah,
Good gravy.
so we're gonna be putting that together in the next couple days, and I'm gonna be sleeping on my freaky floating ghost bed.
Oh, baby.
I
Uh-huh.
still can't
Oh,
believe that
no.
of all the things you could have gotten, you got yourself a ghost bed.
Yeah. Shout outs to Bustin' Tuesday or Thursday rather. It could be
Yeah.
Bustin' Tuesday. I don't care.
I
Bustin'
mean,
Taco Tuesday.
any day ending in Y, really. Any day ending in Y is good for tacos and good for Bustin', apparently.
Yeah.
So whatever.
I agree.
Wow. Okay.
I am Trey immature. Anyway,
Any other life news?
hmm.
Oh man.
Oh shit! Like, okay. So I am gonna actually. This is the first show since I moved, so I will go over the very brief TLDR of the shit show this house has been.
Oh no.
Okay. We had some minor issues going up to closing, as you do. Like that's why you hire an inspector, give the builder the inspection report, and things like that. And good. So I drive back up to Wisconsin so that I could sell the house in Sun Prairie, which is formerly the location of the marathons that we had.
Right.
And that all goes fine. I go to the bank because I go to the bank immediately thereafter, and I had to make an appointment because the lobby closed. So fine.
Mhm.
I show up and I have the wiring instructions for the title company down here to get the funds in place the day before, and that's what it was. I ended up getting to the bank at like 9:30 in the morning on the 31st of August, and I closed on the purchase of the house here in Nashville on the next day, the 1st at noon. So I was like, okay, that's more than 24 hours. It's just going to be, super bueno, whatever. So get the money amount and all that stuff, and I write it down on the cute little form and fill it out and send it in. And I get the confirmation like, hey, look this over before we submit this to the wire department. And I'm like, okay. Name was completely wrong. I was like, how the no, you have my passport in front of your face. So she's like, oh, my bad. She fixes it. Cool. And it's submitted. Great. And went outside, and Vlad and I went to the gas station one final time at Woodman's to get gas, and headed south for a very long time, 12 hours of time. And all was fine and good. We had our little temporary apartment until the day after, just in case, so that we could have, one day of kind of overlap there just to move our stuff out of the little place that we were in. Fine. I wake up the next morning at like 8:30 because I'm anxious for closing because it's like a bunch of money and all this other stuff, as I do. And I check my bank account, and none of the money has left my bank account. And I'm like, huh. So I call the bank and I sit on hold for 50 minutes. And sure enough, they never transferred the money. And I was just like, how? What? I close in 3 hours. They need money, otherwise I don't get keys. And the lady's like, oh, well, I'll contact the department and just sit tight. And then she hung up. So I called the mortgage officer that I had been working with, and she's all like, yeah, that's not going to fly because you can't do anything other than wire funds. We accept checks. We don't accept anything else. I'm like, great. So I call the bank again and sit on hold again. This is 10:30 in the morning already. Closing's at noon. I asked the lady real nicely if she could sit on the line with me until they confirm that they're making the actual wire transfer. And she said, yes, that's fine. So I sit on the line with her, usually hop into their hold music for 25 minutes. Finally, at like 11:05, they confirm that the money's left my account. I check the account, sure enough, it's gone. I hop in the car and race all the way down there. It was kind of far away, 40-minute drive. So I was just like, shit. So got there, fine, signed all the paperwork. I'm pretty sure the dude who was having me sign the paperwork was a vampire himself. The most cold, like, dead to the world eyes. Anyway, figured things out, got the keys, bueno. Cool. So, figured I'd drive south, get to the house. I beat Vlad to the house, so I sat in the driveway for a little bit. Vlad shows up like 5 minutes later. We walk up to the house, and I noticed the front door is just wide open. I'm like, what? And there's just like flies and gnats and dragonflies and all this other random shit in the house. And I'm like, okay. All the lights were on, all the doors were open. I was like, what's going on here? And I go to the thermostat and said, oh, it's set to 70. Temperature 79 degrees. It'll be 70 in 3+ hours. I was just like, okay. And it had the little fan spinny dealy on it. So I went over to a vent. There's nothing moving. I was just like, oh, that's great. Went downstairs. Yeah, the compressors just exploded. It was frozen and dripping onto the concrete and all sorts of stuff. And it was just like, oh no. So I went out to the garage, threw the breaker, called the builder, and was like, help. And he came out and he's just like, yep, that's shot. And got the heating and cooling people out here. And they're like, yep, that's shot. And they were all, well, we don't actually have any parts to fix this. So let's try to figure this out. Days go by, nothing happens. And I'm like, I'm dying. So the humidity when we moved in was like 72 when we hooked up the dehumidifier. It went up into the 80s.
Oof.
And eventually the heating and cooling place, after I screamed at the builder enough, dropped off a portable air conditioner, which is great, fine. So they put it, this big unit, it's like twice the size of a dehumidifier, and they have this hose and it goes outside and you have to have your air exchange on. So they have this little fitting that's supposed to go in the window and then you close the window on it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, one half of the fitting was like a centimeter smaller than the other, so there was just this open air gap, and they left it that way.
Nice.
I was just like... So I used some of the foam from the packing for the boxes that we had, and I just shoved it in there, and that was great. But 11 days after we move in, we finally have air conditioning, and it's glorious and great. So that was one thing. We were supposed to get our refrigerator delivered to the house the night after closing. Instead, the refrigerator showed up at the house at 10:30 in the morning, and then we got told to pound sand by the delivery people and to reschedule. And I was like, fuck. So that got pushed out to Friday, and there's a ding in the fridge that I still haven't been contacted. But we have a fridge, cool. So fast forward to the Monday after Labor Day, because the delivery for our washer and dryer was only able to be done on Mondays. Of course, Monday, Labor Day, is a holiday.
Right. Okay.
So 14 days after we move in is our first opportunity to have a washer and dryer, and it gets delivered to the wrong address. And I'm looking at the email that I got, and it has the correct address, it has the correct name, it has the right time, it has everything, but it ended up at the wrong address. And I sat on hold with the place I bought it from for 8 hours, and they couldn't fix it, and they couldn't just decide to send the moving company out there to grab it and bring it to the right place and do the installation. I still haven't gotten a call back from their quote unquote supervisor. We ended up going over there and taking them back to the house ourselves, using a furniture dolly to bring them upstairs, unbox them, and figured out how to install a washer and dryer with parts we bought from Lowe's.
Oh my god.
Also, the builder forgot to pour a concrete slab in her backyard. Also, a bunch of other stuff. So it's just been like, what the F? So yeah, it's been great. It's starting to finally calm down. We finally got the washer and dryer functional on Tuesday night. So I did like 3 or 4 loads of laundry and just said, done. And yeah, that's good. Also had to delay the delivery of the piano that I've been, rambling about forever because the humidity was way too high in the house. So that was delivered a week ago, actually. It's been really nice. I'm learning that there's a lot of dust in this place, and the dust is really attracted to this finely shiny black material on the piano. And I'm
Yeah,
just
of course.
thrilled.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So I got some dusters, and I'm about ready to switch out all of the air filters again for the 3rd time because there's construction dust everywhere. Oh, and one last thing. And they did rectify this in a good way, but when we got here, you could tell that nothing was cleaned. There was still red clay, dirt all over the concrete everywhere. There was construction dust and piles of used nails and shit. There's laying in places, and we almost drove over it in the garage when we pulled our cars in. And they actually hired a cleaning crew, the same people that go out and clean their model houses and whatnot, to come out, and they actually took a really good job. And yeah, so right before Jesse, who's sitting next to me, hi Jesse, got here, we had the house cleaned successfully, and I'm just kind of like, so yeah, it's just been kind of a nonstop roller coaster that's been all downhill, and it's made me want to puke the entire time.
Oh boy. So that was the TLDR?
That was the TLDR. Yeah, there's much more.
Oh my god. All right. I don't want to hear about the rest right now.
You don't need to. No, I did my best to summarize the worst parts of it because that's what's happened in the world.
Oh my goodness. I'm so sorry.
Hey, at least we have internet now.
That's true. That is a good
That was
utility
also
to
a
have.
1 week ago thing. But yeah, no, I'm on the Wi-Fi. I'm doing a radio show, not on 3G.
I don't. Cool.
So it can only get better from here, right?
Yes.
Please make it true.
With an
That's how this
asterisk.
works, right?
Oh my god. Okay, I think that's enough housekeeping, literal or otherwise.
Literal housekeeping. Yep, you asked.
I did ask, and I do not regret it. But boy howdy, that was a lot.
Yep.
All right, so no more housekeeping. How about some around the world? How about some news? How about some vid game news? Like the stuff that we usually try to talk about every month.
I like video game news.
Yeah.
Why don't you go ahead and start?
I will, with a bit of a shit show. And by a bit, dear. I mean an entire shit show. And
so just decided to continue the shit show. Okay.
Yeah, kind of. Like one shit show for another. Why not? So back in the beginning to the middle of August, Apple, in their whatever sort of wisdom they have, decided to remove Epic Games' star child Fortnite from the App Store.
Okay.
Allegedly saying that the in-app purchases of Fortnite violated their agreements with Apple to not use, essentially, in-app purchases, to make all purchases go through the Apple App Store. Apparently that's the thing. I was not aware that they really enforced that all too well.
Yeah, it was a big thing earlier, too, but people just kind of said, okay, fine.
Yeah, everybody's just like, oh yeah, do something about it, idiots. And apparently this time they decided to. So Epic Games, not being extremely pleased with this move, sued Apple.
Mm-hmm.
in such a manner that you have to believe that this was absolutely a strategic move, because they had a fully produced video riffing on Apple's 1984 ad, a very famous / infamous video of their own, announcing the lawsuit. Who the hell fully produces a video to announce a lawsuit? Apparently Epic Games does. Shortly,
yeah, like it's. I'm sure that they were hoping that they were going to be the martyr here, and people were going to like side with them.
Mm-hmm. And I think by and large, people have. People apparently don't like Apple more than they don't like Epic, which is fine. Whatever. People can choose their sides. Shortly after this whole fiasco, shortly after the initial suing of Apple by Epic, Google, in their particular brand of wisdom, removes Fortnite from the Android App Store. No reason, no really clear reason that I could find. I would guess it's some very similar reasons, like, violating terms of use or use policies or some whatever.
Or, some bullshit.
Yeah, some other whatever reason. So Epic returns fire with another lawsuit. So we've got Epic suing Apple and Epic suing Google. Very good. This is about, mid to mid-late August by this point.
Sure.
Apple then returns with a threat to revoke all of Epic's iOS and Mac developer accounts and access to the dev tools on 28th of August. So that's already come and gone, right? 28th of August was 3 weeks ago.
Right.
However, that didn't actually happen because a federal judge, from Epic's request, has issued an injunction to prevent Apple from revoking those dev accounts and tools and stuff. After a hearing on the 24th of August, Epic also asked for an injunction to restore Fortnite to the Apple App Store. The judge did not grant that injunction. So Fortnite is still off the App Store, but they still have all their dev tools and shit. So, forward to 8th of August, or not 8th of August, 8th of September, Apple files a countersuit alleging breach of contract for use of a disallowed payment method, which is essentially, using something that isn't the Apple payment methods, right?
Right.
So there's another hearing scheduled for 28th of September between Apple and Epic. Now, there has been a sort of a pseudo response from the Google side of things. They are saying that they are working with Epic to resolve matters in a way entirely different from whatever Epic and Apple are fighting about, which I sort of believe. It's different enough where it's like, yeah, shit's flying everywhere, but we haven't really heard a whole lot of the Google side of things, so maybe they're ironing things out. But boy howdy, what a shit show. This entire thing, it's a billionaire slap fight.
Yeah.
Is all it is. And people, of course, are hoorah-rahing on every side. I don't know really where I stand on this. Like, I don't particularly like Apple and their policies. I also don't particularly like Epic and their policies. So let them fight. Let them fight, I guess. I'm not a big fan of Fortnite, but I don't have anything particularly against it. So I don't really care what happens to it.
Yeah, I don't have a horse in this race. I don't really care who wins, but my interest is going to be how this changes like legislation. And like the terms that developers have to follow when putting stuff on, app stores effectively.
Yeah.
Like I'm interested to see what the fallout is going to be and what that means for us developers.
Yeah, there's going to be loads of collateral from this, and that's what scares and/or intrigues me the most. Epic and Apple, they can have their fight. This is shaping up to be another fucking Oracle can't use APIs for Java thing, honestly. Which is still
antitrust.
Yeah, which is still a fucking shit show on its own. So hooray for shit shows. Welcome to 2020. You will not be in
Welcome to insert credits. Wait.
Not great. Yeah, also, not disagreeing. So there's that.
A great show, Tormod.
I know.
We are a pretty good show, I'll admit to that. So the whole Epic, Apple, Google trifecta of lawsuit shitbaggery is just, that's going to continue. I have a feeling there will be another report on it for around 83, so everybody look forward to that.
Ooh, earmark.
Ugh. I just don't like it, but whatever. So some slightly better legal-ish news. So back in, I want to say again, early August, 21 contracted writers for Lovestruck, a mobile app developed by Voltage Entertainment, went on strike. Voltage Entertainment refused to recognize their union for 21 days, and then they caved. So now these 21 contracted writers, and I'm sure more since then, have been formally recognized as the Voltage Organized Workers, with the assistance of Communications Workers of America, CWA, through their campaign to organize digital employees. So hooray for Voltage Organized Workers. Congrats.
Awesome.
Unions are great. Please continue to fight the power and do the good things. I love it. You love to see it. You love to see it.
You'll love to see it.
So I don't know how much else has kind of come of that. I kind of stopped reading as soon as the union was formed because, good. We got good news. We want to end on some good news. So I hope that's still going very well. They got, much better pay, much better credits, et cetera, et cetera. So good. Like that's what I want to remember and pull from this is that unionization worked. It was great. I'll probably check in on that and see if that's actually the good end of the story. But for now, we can believe that's what it was. It's been a good month for game releases, though. Holy heck. Spelunky 2 was released on the 14th of September for PlayStation 4. Fantastic. The PC release of Spelunky 2 will be coming on the 29th of September. So I'm very much looking forward to that.
Right on.
Boy, howdy, Spelunky 2. Oh, man. Do you realize that the first variant of Spelunky was released back in 2003? The very first version of it, freeware on PC, back in 2003. That's 17 years ago. Incredible.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know what? I'm actually going to double check that. I might have crossed my years. Hold, please, for a moment.
It really doesn't feel that old.
It really doesn't, does it? Spelunky release date. I feel like it was 2003. Maybe I'm thinking 2013. I could be like 10 years off. I really could.
No, I'm pretty sure the original game came over.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Re-release? Remake?
Not 2003, 2008. I don't know where I got 2003 from.
That sounds a bit closer to what I recall.
Yeah, I didn't write the year down, so I pulled a year and I made a mistake. I regret the error. But 2008, still 12 years ago. That's incredible. It did get an HD release on Xbox 360 and PC eventually as well. And now, Spelunky 2 is out for PS4 and will be out for PC soon. Incredible. I'm excited. I'm legit excited. Not like ironically excited. Legit excited, which happens so rarely these days. And I'm super happy for that.
Hey, as another call out to games that we've been playing quite a bit when we lived together, Jamestown Plus, also on PS4. So go check that out. It's real great.
Very good stuff there. That was a very recent PC release as well. I think that was earlier this year, in fact. I'm sure we talked about it at the time.
Oh, I'm sure we did.
Very confident.
And I'm sure we need to play it.
Oh, yes. We absolutely need to do. Works pretty well over Steam Remote Play.
Okay.
If you win the lottery on Steam Remote Play. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Like, overall, it's not even per game. It's just like, oh, well, do you get the multiplayer bandwidth today, or does somebody else?
I gotcha.
But, it's always worth a try. It's super good. Super fun game. Amazing. Another sequel coming out very shortly, Soldat 2. 22nd of September for PC. I'm really excited about that one, too. I think this is the one I was thinking was 2003, because I think that's an accurate date. The original Soldat was 2003.
Right on.
Or maybe that's probably the year I started playing it. It might have existed before then.
Maybe, probably.
I don't really know. But in this one is like the original Soldat 1, OG Soldat, whatever, is a very old game, like Windows XP era type of game. So that one I'm pretty confident in saying 2003.
Sure.
But Soldat 2 comes out 22nd September. It's going to have online play. The original had online as well. So I'm real excited to see online play continuing to be a thing. Spelunky 2, by the way, will have official online support as well. So that's cool. Don't know about crossplay between PS4 and PC for that one. I hope so, but you never know. And also, this last thing I think I will leave for the very end, because it's very
Okay.
personally
Mhm.
important for me. So I want you other two folks to do your news.
I'm going to go
Proceed.
next because I'm going to kind of wedge something in that's related. So we had a lot of things coming out in the last couple months. I'm going to focus on hardware specifically.
Mhm.
NVIDIA, of course, major, probably still sitting in the number one position for graphics cards and GPUs and all sorts of things for compute.
Mm-hmm.
They've announced their 3000 series Ampere based GPUs, which, as you can expect, are bigger and better and more expensive than others in the past.
Well,
Sort of. We'll get to it. So they've released the 3080 already. That happened yesterday. Um, Scalpers managed to purchase them all in literal seconds, and I don't know a single real person who actually got one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
damn it.
So that continues to be a thing. Um, People are giving NVIDIA the death stare for the 3090. Be like, so you gonna fuck this up too, kind of thing. So the 3090 will come out on the 24th for, oh goodness, $1,500 was it?
I thought I saw 1200, but you could very well be right.
No, that's the 2080 Ti. That was how much
What?
that one was.
Ah, no. I hate being wrong in the wrong direction.
Yeah, I know, right?
Ugh,
So, if I'm not mistaken, the 3080 was $799.
I think
The
that's right.
3090 is $1499. And on the 15th of October, the 3070 will release for $499,
Is it 499?
$599. I don't know.
I thought it was when I saw it. I was like, "Oh, that seems reasonable." So yeah, you could be right about 499.
Yeah,
Eh,
shrug. But
accuracy.
yep,
That's how we do on this show.
they were announced. They had tech reviewers already with the 3080 and tearing them down and doing benchmarks and everything else. And
Mhm.
by and large, NVIDIA was rather correct. Something interesting that was it Jay's 2 cents had mentioned was performance that you had on the 2000 series cards at 1080p is pretty much the same performance you'll have at 1440p now. So consider that pixel jump and having similar performance for the
Cool.
3080. It's real great. A lot of people are jumping on the 3080 because it is 30% plus faster than the 2080 Ti and a bunch of stuff. So it has more RAM, it has faster RAM, it has obviously a totally different process. I had to think of the word there. But it all looks really great. But, and the reason I'm not going to be purchasing anything new soon because I'm a hardware whore, AMD, of course, they'll be announcing two very major things soon. First, on October 8th, is Zen 3.
Yay!
So we're going to be getting the Zen 3 architecture out for desktops, and later on will be laptops. So I'm pretty thrilled. The 3900X continues to be an absolute powerhouse,
Mhm.
but Zen 3 is allegedly going to blow that out of the water entirely.
That is so nuts
Come
because
on,
like
really?
the 3900X is already like overkill for the kinds of work that I do.
Mm-hmm.
So wait,
But hey,
that's not a Threadripper thing though. The 3900X, right?
no, the
No.
3900X is the second highest of the Zen 2 desktop CPUs. The
Okay.
3950X is the one that has 16 cores and 32 threads.
Cool.
That's the first desktop processor that isn't a Threadripper, because you could call it a desktop slash workstation processor, but
Right.
it's the first consumer desktop processor that has 16 cores, 32 threads. Whereas the 3900X is clocked slightly higher, and because of that is better for single core games and things like that, but has 12 cores and 24. So
Still though.
yeah, and they had a refresh about 2-3 months ago with the XTs, which are pretty okay. They were the same price as the original models and whatnot. But in any case, Zen 3 is being announced in all of its glory on the 8th of October. And on the 28th, RDNA2, the new architecture, Big Navi, gets revealed. Interestingly, though, AMD released a 3D render of one of their cards already. And they did so on Fortnite.
That's right. I did remember seeing something goofy like that.
So the current working conspiracy theory is that
no.
Epic bought the rights to do this as a publicity stunt because it would require people to make accounts and use PC to log into the game.
Oh no.
So it would keep their active subscriber count higher because a lot of people just decided to say fuck it once it was pulled off the Apple App Store. So that's the current working conspiracy theory. I believe that could very well be a possibility. So yeah, that was a thing. I'm waiting to purchase anything until both companies have their stuff. There would be an advantage to me having an AMD card because those continue to be supported by Macs. And if I want to try to consolidate my hardware into a single box for streaming and music production and things like that, a la Hackintosh, I would want an AMD card because presumably they would continue supporting them in the future. Apple continues to use AMD graphics on their non-ARM based things, and they'll continue to make some Intel based stuff for a little bit yet. So we might see them showing up inside of real Macs. So I want to see what comes out. People are saying, hey, the 6900 XT is going to be the top end. NVIDIA has their 3090, but I don't know. A bunch of people keep having a bunch of supposedly credible leaks, and it's interesting because a lot of the images and renders that all of these tech tubers have been receiving weeks in advance are actually accurate. So people got to see an actual full Radeon whatever card. It didn't have a model number printed on it. We got to see what the 3080 and presumably the other Founders Edition cards are going to look like well in advance. So I'm hoping that some of these performance rumors end up being accurate, if not better. So we'll have to wait and see.
Mm-hmm.
But speaking of Zen 3, or is it Zen 2? I don't remember. But the consoles certainly use RDNA 2, both. The new generation of Xbox and PlayStation have been announced, and pre-orders have already gone live. So starting with Microsoft, the Xbox Series S. S is in Sam, which is a digital-only console with less specs. It has the same CPU as their higher model, but it has a GPU with less CUs. I can't remember what that actually stands for, but something units. So there's that. They're marketing it as a 1440p 120 console or maybe 4K 60, depending. And then you have the Xbox Series X, as in X-ray, because I had to think of the phonetic alphabet. So you have the S and the X, remarkably Tesla here. This one's going to be $499 and will have physical disc support. Now, both of these will allegedly have complete backwards compatibility with every Xbox game. So the 360, the Xbox One, and the original Xbox will supposedly have games that will play well enough on the new hardware that you don't need to keep your old hardware.
Interesting claim.
Supposedly, the support for Xbox One games is on launch. You can stick an Xbox One game in and it will play perfectly on launch. As for 360 and Xbox titles, of course, those will need to be emulated on the unit, and who knows? So there's that news. Those pre-orders begin on the 22nd, so only 4 days from now. They have a flashy website. You can go to xbox.com and you can go ahead and see all of the fun shininess. But let's move on to Sony. So Sony has announced their next-gen consoles as well. And they've done the same thing as Microsoft this time. They made a digital-only console and one with Blu-ray disc. So the first is the PlayStation 5 Digital Edition running at $399, and supposedly, allegedly, the only difference that I could find was the inclusion of the ability to read discs, going to the just ye old PlayStation 5 for $4.99. The pre-orders for those already opened, as Sony had made their announcement for the consoles, and I kind of forgot that console pre-orders were a thing, and PC part pre-orders happened, and if you didn't jump on stuff right away, you wouldn't get parts for like 9 to 12 months. So, yeah.
Yeah, speaking of shit shows, Sony was
Like,
having some of their own issues with pre-ordering, with the site like rejecting people outright, and
what? Who was having issues with which site?
so people trying to get like console pre-orders from Sony have been pretty unsuccessful in doing so, at least for some time there.
Is this ordering directly from Sony or is it from retailers?
I don't recall exactly what like which site was affected by this.
I mean, all of the major retailers got hammered pretty hard.
Yeah.
But while you're looking that up, I'm just going to be smug for a moment and say, hey, guess what? I did something.
You got one of the pre-orders, didn't you?
Yeah, so I was reminded by somebody hours after pre-orders had opened. I was just like, shit, I'm going to go try this because I ended up seeing the Final Fantasy 16 trailer, which was interesting. It's in medieval times and settings this time, and I actually quite like that. So
it's not just another steampunk game?
No. No, it's really interesting how they tied in summons, medieval lore, and things like that. So I was actually pretty impressed. That particular demo video that they did actually had gameplay, and this is the first time we'd ever seen Final Fantasy 16. So that's new gameplay in the first reveal. That's a thing. But in any case, go ahead.
Unusual.
Yeah, quite. They ended up taking talent from other very popular video game series. Unfortunately, none that I'd written down, but the battle choreographers for this particular game have been known for very fluid and active battles and things like that. So my impression of that is sort of like Final Fantasy 15, except more polished. So we'll have to see how that goes. But on the pre-order for the PlayStation 5, because I know I'm going to want that game, I decided on a whim just go to Target's website because a friend said, hey, I ordered mine on Target 3 hours ago, and it took me like 10 times in order to get the checkout page to do something, but it said I have an order. So I was like, sure, I'll just go to Target's website. Why not? And I went and loaded up the page for the non-digital version of the console and said, check out now. And I was already logged in, so I already had it just set to like, okay, just do the quick checkout thing. Like you can, instantly buy something. Yeah, it just did it.
Very cool.
And it automatically applied a gift card that I had on the account and my little cartwheel dollars or whatever the hell. And yeah, so I'm getting a PlayStation 5 on launch apparently.
Awesome.
I told myself I would pull the reel once and see if it worked. And I was kind of hoping it wouldn't because spending a bunch of money on the house. And it did. So I was just like, I feel kind of bad for taking a pre-order away from someone else, but I will actually use it. Because allegedly, PlayStation 4 games are 100% backwards compatible on launch as well. So I can just move the PS4 off of my rack and replace it with this one.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so, it looks like the site that was experiencing the problem was the official Sony site, so...
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Not surprising.
Yeah. Really cool to hear that you got one, though. And I was also kind of fascinated to hear that, like, Final Fantasy 16 was also going to be a PlayStation exclusive this time around?
No, it's going to be something similar to Final Fantasy 15, where PlayStation had a 1-year exclusivity.
Okay. So allegedly, it's just a limited time thing.
Yeah, allegedly it's going to be the same, where PlayStation 5 will have its release of the game and have patches and whatnot throughout the first year. Mm-hmm. It'll come out on PC with, obviously the same patches and whatnot, but we'll see.
Okay, so that means I can just, like, the moment that it becomes available on other platforms, we're all going to get the bug fixed version. I'm down with this.
I mean, it was actually really interesting in terms of Final Fantasy 15, considering they changed Chapter 12 entirely.
They
so
did.
we ended up playing that with the original Chapter 12, and people had complained because the only thing you could do was use the Ring of Blue Sea. That's it. You had no weapons. You couldn't do anything.
It was a slog. Yeah.
And yeah, no, it was terrible. It was basically Metal Gear Solid, except CQC forever. And okay, I guess, but in a game that isn't stealthy at all, you go into this forced kind of thing. So they patched it later on, remaking the entire chapter, and once you approached it, it prompted you which character's perspective you wanted to play as. So if you chose Noctis's story, it was the original, somewhat edited Chapter 12, and the other is a totally different experience. So,
cool.
Yeah. But FF16, it's interesting. The discourse that it caused, because of having gameplay in there already, and getting hints at other characters being in the battle scenes just in the backgrounds of the clips they took, made people start to think that, one, this had been in development for years already, and two, we're probably not as far away from a release as it was for FF15 when it ended up going through several different names and stories and whatnot. So people are speculating that they would expect it the first half of 2022. That would be interesting.
Yeah.
But sorry, I didn't mean to interject with that, but it was like, ooh, pre-orders. I did one myself.
Yeah. I guess the next push of content that we can expect about Final Fantasy 16 will be next year. So, like the big push of info. So I'm really looking forward to that, to seeing what what they're going to have in store for us.
One thing I find kind of weird, to go back to the next gen announcements, is Microsoft doing a kind of explicit performance break between the two consoles. Between Series S and Series X. That feels like a dumb move.
A little bit. Now they had done other similar, how would I say this, like mid-architecture weirdness when you had, the OG Xbox 360, and then you had the Slim, and then all this other stuff where it's like kind of the same hardware, but it has revisions and they clearly perform better than the ones that they had beforehand.
Right. Yeah.
But now they're actually starting with disparate, different units.
Yeah, exactly. I don't get the start. I don't get the fragmented start. Like, that makes no sense to me. But
I agree.
Maybe there's probably some huge ass business decision behind it that's like, oh well, we chucked our markets and such, and not everybody can afford the $500 with everything, which is probably true. So we'll do the stripped down one, which honestly I like Sony's approach a lot better, which cut a little bit off and it's just the physical media that's missing, but it's still the same powered thing.
Yeah.
So so looking at the websites for the Series S versus the Series X, they're completely different. So the X focuses most on, you can do 8K 60 gaming on this, or 4K 120, etc. Whereas when you go to the Series S, it's like, hey, you can do gaming, digital only stuff, but also here's all of the list of reasons why this is an amazing home entertainment center kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically got a PC with PC compatibility kind of going in with a browser and being able to listen to music and stream and all that other stuff. But it can play games too, and it has integration within the OS so that it can stream while you play games and sort of stuff. So they're marketing it much more heavily as a multimedia, multi-use kind of thing with the Xbox One Series S, and it's also much smaller. So the physical form factor is probably a third of the volume in size as it is with the Series X.
Yeah, I saw the size comparisons of one inside another or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
My big concern about this is not like I get the market fragmentation of it, but like this is terrible for developers and consumers, really, because now there'll be a big question mark of, oh well, will this run passably well on an S, or do I need to go for the X? Or, after release, years down the line or whatever, you'll start getting games more geared towards the X because it has more power, and then the S users are kind of out of luck. And I just I don't know. It feels real bad to me, but I wasn't gonna buy it anyways, so maybe I'm just yelling at the void. But
yeah,
well,
I don't know.
Kind of... Go ahead.
Oh, my follow up to that was just going to be like, if you're getting the cheaper version of the console, you're generally also not going to like have, I should say, I'll flip that around. If you're going to get the more expensive version of the console, chances are you didn't also cheap out on a display. And so
right.
I feel like developers can make more concessions to maintaining good performance on, the less powerful console and really not suffer the wrath of consumers. Like, I feel like, they also anticipate that, if they do revisions, as you mentioned, of the hardware down the road, they can set that expectation up early. And that way, people aren't going to be like, oh my God, did you get like the good one or the crap one? It's a mystery, and, you got to win the lottery on that. I feel like by setting that up, expectation up front, I don't think it's going to be as big of an issue for consumers later on.
Yeah, maybe not. I guess I'm just recalling what happened with a Nintendo and the 3DS, and then the 2DS, and then the new 3DS and the 3DS XL, and like Microsoft this time really shat the bed with naming, like just straight out front. That naming sucks. It's terrible. PS 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's boring, but it works. It makes sense. Like
reliable.
You know what you're getting, like straight out the box. But now it's Xbox and Xbox 360 and Xbox One, Xbox One X, Xbox Series X. Fuck me. Like, what kind of naming sequence is that? Oi. But yeah, the hardware different revisions thing is just, I feel like starting off with two, very significantly different revisions is not a great idea. But again, I'm not a Microsoft businessman, so maybe it'll work. Maybe it's perfectly fine and I'm yelling about nothing. But boy howdy, I'm interested to see how it plays out.
Old man yells at cloud gaming.
Pretty much, yeah. That's me. I am now ye old man, so hooray. All right, that was my interjection about the next gen consoles. Was there something else you wanted to say, Tormod, as well, I think? Or maybe not.
Well, I was just going to go into the, hey, Saxxon, I'm going to set you up for a segue for one of your next news items here and be like, hey, what about those new 3DS only games?
Cool. I'm glad we are segueing at 100% efficiency, as always.
Yep. Absolutely. And, there's no way to discern the seams, between the different.
No, there won't be after I get done with this, surely.
All right. So yeah, speaking of the 3DS, Nintendo officially discontinued the 3DS.
Oh,
like officially now. So they're not going to manufacture any more of them. There might be like some firmware updates here or there, but it's safe to say that Nintendo is not going to be doing anything further with a 3DS. And I mean, my thought is it's about time. The Switch has already been out for a bit already, and they've seen some great success with it. It's, a really outstanding successor to the 3DS. So if anything, I feel like Nintendo has been really, really generous about, supporting and supporting the 3DS for so long into the lifetime of the Switch.
That's a hell of a long tail on that one. Was it been a decade or something? Maybe even more for a 3DS line?
Yeah, 3DS has been around for what, like nine-ish years now? Something like that.
The original DS was a fantastic machine in all its revisions. Again, kind of shittily managed by Nintendo, but whatever. It was a very solid machine. 3DS was another, sparkling, cool example of a mobile games, I don't want to say console, but a mobile games device. They know how to do mobile, amazingly enough.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's also kind of fascinating to think like, all you really need to have is like, a Game Boy Advance, and a 3DS, and you have access to like 30 years worth of mobile gaming on,
Yes.
and it's kind of wild, just how few devices you can have for such a wide variety of games. So like, just, yeah, I commend Nintendo for supporting mobile like they have. And honestly, it's to nobody's shock that they're discontinuing the 3DS officially now.
Right.
So.
Yeah, you were right with 9 years though. OG 3DS, February of 2011.
Dang.
Good lord.
Uh-huh.
Well, 07's in chat for the Nintendo 3DS.
Dang, though. I mean, just the ability to play literal decades of games on a device that was still being manufactured in the 2000s, a la the GBA. Dang, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the GB, like the Game Boy itself had a really long run too. Like pretty much like, comes out in the late 80s, goes all the way through the 90s, and then, like Game Boy Advance.
Game Boy Advance was another long-standing.
Yeah, that one was like 2000,
Trooper.
so that was probably another good, 9 years of official support.
Yeah, and then there was all the OG Game Boy and Game Boy Color re-releases, like the Micros and then the Pockets, Pocket Color.
Oh,
I was going to say, don't forget the Pocket, because the Pocket was probably my favorite.
Those were so cool.
The displays were so much better.
Yeah.
Did they
the colors are probably my favorite displays of all of like the classic Game Boys, and it's also fascinating that like all of that stuff is just basically a giant hack of the original Game Boy design anyway, all the way through the Advance. So.
Right. Did the Pockets have the active backlighting to them as well, or was that before the... Okay, nuts.
Yeah, so people were making mods, but I don't think you could get a Pocket with a backlight.
Yeah, so a popular mod that was... let me think here. It would have been in the late 90s. Front light was pretty popular, that they were actually modding it inside the case. Of course, you had accessories that you can like draw off the link cable power just to have your crappy little incandescent bulbs. But
yeah, I remember those.
The big changes that influenced clarity and whatnot were the smaller screen, so the pixels themselves were smaller, so the image was sharper. But it was also gray based instead of, I guess it was that amber color. And also, instead of being biverted, it wasn't, or something like that. So you didn't really have to mess around with contrast a whole lot, because it was pretty clear, like, hey, you have a light color and a very defined darker color where you're having things appear on the screen. And that made it so much easier, because on the DMG, like, you would have to mess around with the contrast wheel a whole lot, and even moving angles, you would have to do it. Changing games, you would have to do it. Like, it just made it so much more consistent with the Pocket.
Yeah, it's wild to think that OG Game Boy gray-ass brick had a contrast dial.
Yeah.
Wild. So I remember the very short... I don't know if it was actually short-lived, but in my mind it's short-lived. The Game Boy Advance Afterburner was, I think, the first of that line to have a backlight.
Interesting. I'm not familiar with that name.
Yeah,
which one?
The Afterburner. I think it was an official thing. Maybe it was just a really popular mod or some other third-party thing. But it was the original Game Boy Advance kind of squashed hexagonal thing with an actual backlight to it. And then once they hit Game Boy Advance SP, the backlight was now commonplace, and now everything after that had it.
The SP screen was really good.
Yeah. It's just a shame it was kind of a weird-ass form factor. Like, it was the
sucked
full
to hold.
clamshell.
Like
yeah.
Playing F-Zero on an SP was a nightmare, because it's like, it's square waffle iron, right? And it's just digging into your palms, and you have to use the shoulder buttons all the time, and they're just these tiny little chiclets up there.
It's like, no.
It's a flip phone, sort of.
I mean, it was really good, because it's like, screen protection whilst it's in your pocket and stuff like that, and it was really a very neat device. But geez,
don't forget about the different hardware revisions of the SP.
How many of those were? Yeah, I remember there being a lot of those too, weren't there?
I think there were there were 2 or 3, because I know The first was front lit, then the second was backlit. They may have made another revision after that, but then the micro
Yeah.
came out and was basically like hey, this is the smallest screen with the backlight, and it has the best clarity because again, smaller pixels, etc.
Mhm.
Yeah, I
I
waited for
never
the
actually got to
backlight one.
use or see a micro, so that would be interesting sometime.
Yeah, I've seen a couple. I've never actually had one or held one or used one, but kind of a weird, not necessarily black sheep of the product line, but kind of a weird standout to it.
I
It
mean,
is. It's actually it's surprisingly fun. And admittedly, I would love to see that come back.
yeah, I think it'd be kind of cute to have just a tiny little switch, except that just melt in your hand because it'd be way too hot.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have a water cooled Switch Micro. Yeah, I don't know.
And then you hit the DS line where they had, a dozen revisions of that. You had the old
Yeah.
fatty DS, and then DS Lite and DSi, and was there a DSi XL too or something?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my god. I hate that I'm right about that, but wow, yeah. To rip to my old fatty DS, I finally had to toss that one out.
Oh. I did like the light. The light was a
That's
I
probably
felt
my
like that
favorite.
was a good
Yeah, that was a good revision of it, I think.
It
Certainly.
was the Game Boy Pocket of the Nintendo DS,
Surely.
Yeah.
and it did really well. It still has, excuse me, it has the color that I still think is the best of the Game Boy line that I've ever seen, and it was the Cobalt Blue.
Yeah.
But the DS Lite was pretty primo. Plus, it was my first foray into having a battery that was built in, so I was just like, whoa.
All right, sorry, we're waxing poetic about old Nintendo mobile
We-
stuff.
I
We
remember.
are. Yeah.
So I think Saxxon, now we were just getting to your new stuff since we botched
Yeah.
the segue
I mean-
and then started talking Nintendo Mobile.
Yeah. Well, I would my item was, like the discontinuation of the 3DS.
Right, yeah.
We already covered the shit show that was the pre-order of the PlayStation 5 and Nvidia RTX 3000 series. Let's see what else. And we covered Final Fantasy 16. I have some WoW news. We're getting closer and closer to the launch of the new expansion called Shadowlands. The release date for that's going to be October 27th, which is a bit earlier than, Blizzard has typically released expansions. Usually we're looking at, something like November, December. So, but I'm fairly certain that it's popular to do it sooner because of how over the current expansion players are. So
I would guess it has something to do with maybe Halloween as well, given the name, but
yeah, who knows? But yeah, that's going to be right on the cusp of that too.
I'm wondering if they have a projected lifespan for what they want to do with, their next expansions. Like, do they have an end in sight? Are they trying to gear up for some big story event?
Well, what's happening in Shadowlands is already going to be pretty major, but like it's generally accepted that any expansion that we are like that we have any information on like right now is one expansion behind like the latest thing that they've got anything written out for.
Makes sense.
They're usually one expansion ahead, and that's just because they have a 2-year release cycle, to keep things fresh. So
My brain just made expansion +1. Anyway.
Yeah. But so yeah, it's finally doing the stat squish again, so that the inflation of all of the stats are it doesn't get out of control again. This is like I think the third one that they've had to do. The level cap is getting squished as well. We're going back to a cap of 60. Hooray!
Ooh, is that OG?
Yeah, that's where it started. So
Okay, cool.
yeah, so there's that. And huge changes to the way that you obtain loot. That was another thing that was revealed this month. covenants, which is kind of like an NPC guild that you assign yourself to and do quests for and stuff. And so there's a lot of really cool stuff that's in the pipe for this one. They also had a couple pre-patches. A pre-patch is kind of that's something that they've done since the very first, which is like, we're going to take some features of the new expansion that we're putting out and bring them to the current game to try and help smooth over the transition. So we got the first of those yesterday, the 17th. And the devs are saying that the next one is going to be quite a bit closer to the actual release day, maybe within a couple of weeks. There isn't an exact date for that one yet, but I imagine that it'll just kind of be dropped on us with a week's notice or something like that. So
we're talking like tens of gigs kind of patch, or
yeah, I mean, this is like a whole new expansion, so there's new territories to go to. They've refreshed a lot of models, because occasionally they'll go back and redo some of the older content to kind of bring it up to consistent visual style.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. Yeah, it's going to be fascinating. No new classes this time, but yeah, we'll just have to wait and see how it goes. I've been part of the beta for a couple months, and it's pretty okay.
Cool.
I am actually legit excited for this expansion, unlike the one that we're on right now, which is Battle for Azeroth.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely not been a popular expansion by any stretch. So yeah. And the final item I got, I'm gonna move on from WoW stuff because I could talk about that all night, but then I would be the only one. The final item I got is Crisis Remastered. Yeah, so
just in time for all these next gen GPUs.
Boy.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can already do it on PlayStation 4, I believe, and of course we're gonna get versions for the new consoles, and it's the developers are kind of boasting about how unrunnable that this new thing is at smooth frame rates at 4K.
Of course.
So that's going to end up being kind of the new benchmark now, where can it run Crisis in 4K?
Oh my god!
I'm going to do quad SLI 3090s.
Oh my god! Do you have 12 open PCI bays? Come on.
Hey, they make special motherboards now with the consumer chipsets that actually space them out for this kind of stuff.
Really?
Yeah, you can just get a backplane that has the spacing you need.
I mean, granted, I'd probably want to use a Threadripper board just to have all of the PCI Express lanes.
Yeah, you'd run out of lanes pretty quick.
PCI Express 4.0 x16 times 4. That's just monstrous amount of data across the bus.
Hey, at the very least, you wouldn't have to worry about heating during the wintertime. So
True enough. I mean, at that point, just get a riser with a ribbon cable or something and put it outside the box.
You'll look like every other serious crypto miner setup out there.
God.
I mean, frankly, I could just have the PC live inside of the HVAC unit and just turn the fan on.
No, it'll be held during the summertime though.
Well, then you move it.
You move it inside the AC unit then.
I was going to say, into the icebox it goes.
So, yeah. And that's
time for Tunes Keys?
It is almost, except I forgot one thing.
Oh, yeah, your final item.
Actually, two things. My final item I'm going to leave for our next section in personal gaming, because it probably fits better there. But one other game release that totally skipped my mind, Battletoads. A new Battletoads game.
Oh, yes.
Wow. Wait. Yeah, it was released on
something.
Yeah, on the 20th of August.
Oh, it was advertised during SGDQ. I forgot. That's where I saw it.
Yeah, so it's interesting. Definitely not the Battletoads game I was expecting. Because you remember OG Battletoads, and even like Battletoads for SNES and Battletoads for arcade was just like straight up beat 'em up, whatever, you mash buttons and move around and stuff. There's puzzles and some platforming stuff going on, and there's the obligatory, of course, turbo bikes and tunnel and stuff like that. I didn't play
puzzles in my beat 'em up.
Right? Like, I was surprised. Like, not necessarily negatively surprised, but it's like, oh, well, let's see how they do this. I didn't play a whole heck of a lot of it. The original plan was for myself and Boris to do co-op with it last weekend. Unfortunately, we did not win the Steam multiplayer lottery that I was talking about before, so that fell through, and we ended up playing Soldat instead. But I played it just a little bit after we had kind of wrapped up with Soldat, and I was like, okay, this is Battletoads, this is neat and fun, and the art style is fantastic. Like, it's all cartoony and shit, and it's like, wow, this is cool. And the characters they have voice acting. There's voice acting on my Battletoads characters, which is actually kind of fun. And the Dark Queen is back, and I love her as a character because she's funny, and oh man, I've got very mixed emotions about it so far because I've played so little of it. Like, I can't form a real complete understanding of the game yet, but I don't know.
And we're still dealing with Rash and Pimple.
Yeah, Rash and Pimple and Zitz is there, so it's up to 3-player co-op.
Nice.
It's fantastic. Like, it's like, oh man, this is like taking me back and then forward and then back again. And I don't want to play like too much of it because I'd really like to experience it as co-op because, Battletoads and co-op and carrying people off ledges and shit, like that's...
I was going to say, you really wanted to continue the meme, didn't you?
Right, exactly. Like, you have to. It's got its own life to it by now, so like we can't kill it off. So I don't know. Just like my first experience with it is like it's Battletoads, but it's different, but it's not bad different, which I like.
So it's going to be you, Boris, and 006.
That's what we were hoping for. 006 had to drop out for other reasons, and then we tried with just Boris and me, and again, didn't get the lottery that time, so no dice. But
that's got to be a special event at some point.
Oh my goodness, yeah. As soon as everything clears up and everybody can visit people now without risking the corona, would be real nice. But anyways, I wanted to throw that in because it's blanked my mind completely, and I think it's worth mentioning that Battletoads, the new Battletoads, is out. Fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely.
With that, however, it is time for Toonskis.
All right. We start with At the End of the Road by Blue Lighter from Golden Sun, The Lost Age.
And then a remix from Mega Man 5 entitled Gravidade by Leandro Abreu, Andre Pastore, Helton Lima, Leo Quintao, Marco Lima, and that's it. I did not read the remainder of that list very well, but by all those people.
Yep, and we're going to round that out with a remix from One Must Fall 2097 titled One Must Fall 2064 by Aino Kescatello.
Almost as soon as we kicked off that first track, I remembered that there was one housekeeping item I forgot to bring up.
Okay.
So I'm going to do that quickly right now. I promise to everybody out there that we are working on changing the layout such that you get more than my stupid face to look at. Because I believe it's important to have equal opportunity stupid face looking. So I promise we're working on that. I'm not sure that we'll get it ready for next round, for round 83, but I promise, I super promise, like you can hold me to it, that we're working on it in the background. That's all I wanted to mention, really. Okay, so what we've been playing, I'm gonna defer my stuff until the very end because it will fit in nicely with the final quote-unquote news item that I wanted to bring up before. So I will leave it between ye old other two to determine who goes first here.
Cool, I'm gonna go first. I played nothing. Next.
Oh, sad.
Oh. Yeah, sad face.
Yeah.
Yeah, we understand.
In between all of the madness, I've still somehow managed to maintain my WoW Classic raid schedule, and eventually, like, become the highest rated Resto Druid on the whole server. So,
wow,
yay!
Congrats.
And that's out of like a few hundred, so
Dang.
I'm feeling pretty good about that.
Nice.
Yeah, so there's that. It's eternal. I'm gonna bring up WoW Classic every time.
Everybody's
I've
got
also,
their one game or two games or whatever that
oh yeah,
will never go away.
I mean, a lot of these that I'm going to mention are, it's a lot of stuff that I've played before, and in fact, there's one other that I need to add on here that I've been practicing for speedrunning.
Nice.
It's a game that I had played at Super Stigma Slam that I want to refine quite a bit. So I'll touch on that later. I have been getting in a bit more into like board gaming, or at least attempting to. Got to play a bit of two games I've never played before, called Forgotten Island and Forgotten Desert. They kind of sound like they would be, the same game with like a different tile set or something, but actually it's, like they're made by the same company. I forget exactly who makes them, but
well, they did their job then.
They're yeah, right. They're
But
quite different games though. Forgotten Island is kind of neat in that like they're both cooperative games, and so everyone who's playing is kind of dropped onto this island that's consistently sinking, and you're supposed to grab the treasures and get everyone else out alive. So like, there's a condition in the game where like some location tiles will just, be removed from the game entirely, right? And because it sinks underwater. And you can shore up these tiles and like try to remove, like bail the water out, but because it's still consistently flooding, it'll eventually go under anyway and become overwhelming. As the game progresses, it becomes more and more difficult to maintain the water. So there are lots of lose conditions. Like even on the novice level that we played on, which is like the easiest difficulty you can set it on, there was still a couple moments where like, oh my goodness, we are still going to lose. Yeah, so if at any point it becomes impossible to like retrieve the treasures, or any of your party members die or something like that, the game is instantly over. And then there's also like a limit based on, like how many of this one particular card that causes all the water to rise, like that you draw out of the deck. And every time that happens, it rises faster. So it'll become like pretty much an instant game over if you dally too long. So that one is Forgotten Island. I definitely recommend playing it. Since it was just Cheesecake and myself when we played it, I feel like it's a game that would greatly benefit from having 3 or 4 players instead of 2, even though you can play with 2. Just to, kind of mix things up, because everyone's, got their own role that they're given, and it gives you special powers and stuff and helps you navigate the board or move items around or that kind of thing. So, Yeah, and then Forgotten Desert is so your plane crashed in the desert, and so you're just met with a whole crap ton of sand dunes and a sandstorm that is progressively picking up, and so the idea is to excavate all these different tiles and find the parts of this airship. I don't fully get the story. You're finding parts for an airship that's powered by this really cool crystal, and once you get all the parts assembled together and you get back to the the landing pad all alive, you win. But like the tiles will progressively start to get buried with sand, and so you have to dig the sand off before you can do anything with them. So it's another fun tabletop game that yeah, I mean, I would definitely play it again. So those are the two tabletop games that I've got on the list. Besides, like Pathfinder, but that's a that's kind of a that's another one of those eternal ones. As for video games, I've got Joe of the Jungle, which I've started to route again. It turns out that the competition is already going to be very fierce for that game. If I want to shoot for leaderboards or anything like that. So, but I'm still going to speed run it because I still want to figure out like how far I can push the game. Duke Nukem 2 is another one that I don't think it's devoid of speedruns, but I feel like it's less popular than Jill of the Jungle as far as like speedrunning it. And that's because it's a bigger pain in the butt to get running.
Oh boy.
There's also Impossible Mission 2. I've specifically been playing the Commodore 64 version of it. That's another game that I would like to actually do. I'm going to start with long plays and then eventually get to speed running it. It's not a particularly friendly to speedrun game because of some of the luck involved and some of the risks that you have to take in order to cut time down. To kind of give you an idea of like how much of a pain in the ass speedrunning that is going to be. You're in this huge complex. You are trying to search behind items and stuff for secret codes that will gain you access to the other parts of the complex. And the goal is to assemble a cassette tape that contains recordings of all of these different instruments playing different parts of the same song. And once you assemble all of those recordings onto the same cassette tape, you can play it back at the final security door and then win the game.
Multi-track.
Okay.
So that's, yeah. The thing is, though, there are 8 towers, but there are 6 distinct recordings. 2 of them are duplicates. So if you go through this whole tower, and you manage to like blow the safe open and find out, crap, it's a duplicate. Well, then that's an additional tower that you have to go and search, which blows the time right away. It's basically like if you're really going at it hardcore, it basically kills the run.
Oh.
But you won't know until you're most of the way through the run.
Oh, that's
so it's kind of brutal in that sense. But still, and because all of the item placement is random, because of the tower arrangement and the rooms that you get are random, it's like you can get you can get a certain arrangement of rooms that's easy versus an arrangement of rooms that's just absolute hell. So
and I suppose this was well before the time of, hey, enter a seed and we'll give you the same layout as before,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
This is 1985, 1986, something like that. Yeah. But yeah, I'm still gonna give it a shot though. At the very least, I want to see, like how fast I can complete it. So, let's see what else we got. Heretic, which is a much bigger game than I thought it was going to be. So if you remember like the original, I would say if you remember, Ultimate Doom had 4 episodes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you had 8+1 maps, the one being the secret. Heretic has 5 episodes, with the expansion that's added onto it, and the maps are much more sprawling. They're huge. They require a lot more backtracking. So I feel like that's a game that I might not try to speedrun. I might just try to survive through it, and maybe stream that or something and kind of go in blind. Well, not entirely blind, but effectively just sit down and try to complete it, on stream or something. But
yeah, I only ever remember the first episode because shareware.
yep, that's actually the problem that I had with Duke Nukem 2 as well. It's all like I can do the first episode great.
Oh yeah.
But when I get so lost when I get to the other episodes, so yeah, and then the final game, and this is the one that I was talking about from Super Stigma Slam, Blake Stone Planet Strike. That is, there's a couple different categories that I want to do with that one. First is basically just beat the game effectively, and the other is going to be a lot more sinister. The 100% run of that game. Because it is so easy to accidentally screw yourself out of 100%.
Oh, can you permanently lock yourself out of actually getting it?
Yeah, so check this out. Your score starts at 33%, and that's because
Oh, right.
100% of the informants are alive at the beginning of the game.
Yeah.
Okay. If you so much as kill one of them, you
Mhm.
pretty much kiss the 100% goodbye.
Rip. Yeah. Okay.
There's also ways that you can push secret push walls out of order that will block off certain treasures that make it impossible to get 100% of the bonus points in any particular level.
Oh, I didn't think it was that bad. Oh, no.
Oh my goodness. Blake Stone is like the biggest offender when it comes to that kind of puzzle. So
dang. That's a good run though. I remember very clearly your run in, I think, was it 2019, right?
Oh yeah.
It was great. It was very entertaining. I loved it.
Yeah, I enjoyed running it on stream a lot, and I feel like there's a lot of room for improvement. There's some folks who have been running the other Blake Stone game, Aliens of Gold. That one's the episodic one. And the movement tech that a couple other folks have demonstrated just far surpasses mine. So I'm like, okay, I feel like I have a lot to learn here, but also no one is running this specific game. So maybe, we can set a decent baseline.
Hey, free world record.
Yeah, right? I still have it.
Perfect.
But yeah, it's pretty much because nobody else has submitted a score, and I would know because I run the leaderboard. So
even better.
So yeah, that is my games list.
All right. Well, I guess it's then down to me. Okay, I'll leave this special one towards the very end. So, I've been playing a lot of Hades lately. Hades actually recently hit 1.0 in the past day or two. It was in early access for year and a quarter, something like that. It's the latest kind of big release from Supergiant Games, who, as you may remember, did Bastion and Transistor and Pyre. So they've got a lot of good titles under their belt. So Hades is their most recent one. Fantastic, love it. Unfortunately, I had to stop playing it while it was still in early access. So eventually, I'll go back to it in its full release and see if there's actually a satisfying ending to it now. It's one of those, like, you go in, run's always different, it's roguelite, so you unlock stuff and get stronger and stuff like that, and then they need to contrive some reason for you to go back and keep doing it. So the story reason is you just end up dying somehow and starting back at the beginning. So I hope there's an actual ending that one can achieve and see, but we'll have to leave that for a later time. I've also just recently started up on the DLC to Talos Principle. That's a very, very, very heavy puzzle game from Crow Team, as you remember, either did or had a very heavy hand in the Serious Sam series. But I'm now revisiting the DLC to it, The Road to Gehenna, and they do not hold back with their puzzles this time around. It took me like a solid 35-40 minutes to solve the very first one. Then again, my mind was kind of a little bit burned that night, so I'm not gonna be too harsh on myself for it. But it's very interesting. It's more of the same kind of setups of puzzles. You have these different elements that you have to deal with, like, you know, putting lasers from a source to a destination and using fans to move stuff around, and using blocks, and watching out for mines, and stuff like that. So it's very much the Talos principle that I remember and love for the most part. So I have a feeling I'm going to be going with that for a couple more weeks at the very least, because some of these puzzles are very dense, which is good because I hadn't done a real like good puzzle game in a while. But looking forward to more of that. Mentioned briefly earlier that myself and Boris did play a little bit of co-op Soldat, enunciation pools. It was very fun, exactly as fun as I remember it from playing in the late high school and early college days. It's a dumb shooty game. It's a shooty game with no story and no justification. You just go shoot, and that's exactly what it needs to be. Very fun. We ended up going like 9-1 in our matches against a team of bots, because we don't play with randos online. But it was a good co-op. We did do a fair amount of team killing just to keep the spirit of quote unquote co-op alive. So that was a good time. I also recently picked up again into OG Unreal Tournament.
Oh yes,
it's almost always, whenever I do a clean reinstall of my machine or whatever, it's almost always the very first game I install to play and to test things out that things are working. I had to do a little bit of massaging to get it to run this past time, but it still runs great. And oh man, it's just as fun as I remember. It's my absolute hands down 100% favoriteest game ever. So I just love booting it up and doing some capture the flag or playing old deathmatch, and it's just just the good memories start flooding back, and it feels great. I'm not quite back up to, like, I never play online, so it's just all bots all the time. But I'm almost back up to full skill bots again, so it's like, oh yeah, I still kind of got it, even though I'm an old man.
Right.
But it's super fun. I
did the same thing on my retro PCs, and so the retro box I've got right now is it has a Voodoo 2 in it specifically to play Unreal Tournament.
Nice, yeah, real good stuff. Like, it's always kind of a bit fudgy to try to get it to work on a modern box, and doubly so since I run Linux, because all that sort of thing. But there's just enough still out there that, hey, there's new updates to the renderer. You can still use the bonus packs and stuff, but you gotta recite an incantation 3 times backwards and and hope that the audio still works, and it does, thankfully. But it works great. I'm so pleased. I might stream that at some point just for grinsies, because this is just a fun time, just a real good time. On the Shmup Book Club front, new game for September is Gyruss, arcade version. I played I played a whole heck of a lot of the NES version, so I'm already kind of coming into this a little bit primed. But boy howdy, is that game frustrating sometimes.
Yeah, just a bit.
Yeah, it'll dunk you once and you lose your double shooters, and well, rip that run, I guess. But it's standard arcade, super hard here. Plunk in your quarters. We'll give you a couple stages to do well, and then you better bring your game, because we're gonna shut you down and take the next person's quarter. But it's fun. I do like that game quite a bit. I haven't played any of the other shmups that are going on for the quarter, just because of things that have been happening, and the next one that I'll talk about very soon. But that's Zero Ranger, the new content expansion, White Vanilla. Very fun score attack mode. I didn't play any of that yet since the last show we had, which was early August, right? And then Cyvariar, whatever, is the other kind of quarterly shmup that's going on. I haven't set that up or run that at all either. Maybe I'll get to it, maybe I won't, since we're coming up on the end of quarter 3 here. Just depends on what happens, I guess. So the last one that I was saving for the end of this segment, and what I was kind of alluding to earlier in Around the World in our news section, Infinity Drive for Life was the charity event that I ran for 2 and change weeks, from the middle of August, starting on the 17th of August, up to the 2nd of September. Not all those days, thankfully. My goodness, that would be too much. But 8 days during that 3-week span, I played nothing but Assault Android Cactus, the Infinity Drive mode, to raise money for charity to support Extra Life. We typically had done that for our stuff through Zero Hour Productions for Extra Life, 2017. Did we start in 2016 or 2017? Do you remember?
I think it was 2017.
2017. Okay, so 2017, 2018, 2019. Obviously, we couldn't do it for 2020 because of other factors, but I wanted to still do something, so Infinity Drive for Life was it. Salt Ender Cactus, Infinity Drive, so 8 days of nothing but Infinity Drives, 24 runs of Infinity Drive, which is so many, and I sort of regret doing it, but I don't regret doing it because it's a good cause.
Yeah.
But just for context of how many drives that is, I had always done like, a weekly Assault Android Cactus thing, do a speed run, do an Infinity Drive, and be done. For the rest of 2020, up until that point, I had done 25 Infinity Drives, and I knocked out 24 in the span of 2.5 weeks. So
yeah, how many hours do you figure that was? Like, if you were
I've got the stats
smash
for
it all
it.
together.
I have the stats 100% for it.
Ooh.
20 hours and 10 minutes and 9 seconds of Infinity Drives, and that's just in-game game time. Like during the actual run, I'm sure there's a couple or hours more of me just flapping my gums at the beginning and start and in between. But yes, 20 hours of Infinity Drives. Oh wow, that was a lot of them. I did manage to stay above 50% win rate, which is impressive for me. 14 wins and 10 losses. Played through all 9 playable characters 3 times, with the exception of the final 3. So 3 times with 6 of them, and then 2 times with the remaining 3 of them. Oh boy. We did manage to raise $1,251 for Extra Life, so very happy with that outcome. Thank you everybody for so much support and awesomeness. It was very cool and very fun, and I would love to do something at this scale again, but maybe perhaps not for a long time, because that's a lot of Infinity Drives. One other thing I'm proud of is the side thing that I was running at the time as well, a little side betting game, so to speak, of the results, which I'm very pleased. I would be more pleased with more participation in it, which that kind of bummed me out a little bit, but I'm so glad that people participated in it at all, to guess the results of the runs. And there's a whole ranking system and points and different kind of betting things you could do. You could be highly confident or very low confidence, and it just worked so well, which I'm so pleased about. Nothing crashed, nothing. I didn't have to fudge anything to make it work, and it was really cool. So I'm going to keep that system around, because I'm really happy with it. But I don't know how to do it outside of like a really major event like this. So I'll do some tweaks or something and see what I could do for like a version 2. But I'm really pleased with the turnout. I'm really pleased with all the support, and we raised a bunch of money for an excellent cause. So I'm super pleased with the whole thing, just all the way around.
Hey, it was real fun to participate in that too.
Yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad
driving
people had
engagement
fun.
kept everybody pretty pumped.
Yeah, I'm super glad for it. I was pleased to see chat like just going bananas sometimes, and just had a whole bunch of call outs for, oh man, I probably ruined somebody's bet with this one. Oops.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was just a real good time, and I'm super pleased that I finally pulled the trigger on it and actually did it, because I was in planning for months and months, and originally started with the spreadsheet, and then, oh man, the spreadsheet's like way too stupid, and so I had to do something else, but it turned out great. So I'm super pumped that went so well.
Yeah, that, and you have the infrastructure for when you do it again, right?
Right, exactly. Well, maybe not this exact thing, because 24 drives is a lot to do in one sitting, but it's the proof of concept worked.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and that's all I got for stuff being played. So how about we hit Toonski's number dose here?
Okie dokie. Let us continue on with Horizons of Time by DDR Kirby Paren ISQ Paren from Chrono Trigger.
And then a remix from Tetris entitled T-Spin by Stiffles.
And finally, we have a remix from Golden Sun, The Lost Age, titled To the Open Seas by D-Dubs.
Okay, I'm ashamed to say that my design this go around is kind of phoned in, because I had to deal with a whole bunch of other things whilst I was writing it initially. But I think that's okay. I think it's okay to have like a little phone in as a treat sometimes. So that's how we're gonna deal with it, at least from mine. And if there's no objections, I'd like to go first.
Please.
All right. So our past kind of ad hoc designs have been, I think, inspired by the situation that everybody is in, with the pandemic and everything being kind of upside down forever and ever. And mine this go around is really no different. It is kind of inspired by everybody being cooped up indoors, and we don't really know what the state of the world is going to be like tomorrow versus next week versus next month or whatever, depending on where you happen to be. But it has a very small backstory involved with it as well, and I typically don't put backstories to my games. But we're just gonna do a little something different here. So the backstory here to kind of set the scene. This is a precision endless runner, and the story is thus: the city is empty, no people, and even nature knows to stay out, but you won't, because it's perfect for a jog. Too bad, the city is now kind of a dump. So that's the entirety of the story. There's nothing else to it. But it's designed to be a very simple and an accessible game. So very simple controls, sort of tank-like if you want to think of them in that regard. It's intended to be used with only 2 analog triggers. But however, every one of these actions can also be assigned to a discrete button for accessibility purposes as well, because that's very important. So you hold the left trigger to turn left, you hold the right trigger to turn right. You pull both to slow down or stop if you get slow enough, and you quickly release both of them to jump with some forward momentum added so you don't soft lock yourself. But it's a procedurally generated city. You start in the middle of a city block, and then before the game starts, you kind of pick a line and run towards it, and then the rest of the city kind of generates in front of you as you go. You can turn yourself around, go back to where you started from, but any kind of city section that you revisit will be in slightly worse repair the second or the third or the fourth times that you come back, just to mix things up a bit. Your speed gradually increases the longer you go. You also accelerate faster from a dead stop. Some of this sounds kind of familiar, so I might have touched on a few of these points in earlier designs, but we're just going to go with it. Turning is slower the faster you go, so very, very tank-like controls. And retreading over already seen areas, the area is kind of more dilapidated, the more frequently you revisit. The ending condition is, well, you get stuck behind a wall permanently, or you fall in a hole or something. It's just real abstract, nothing like too detailed or gory or silly or whatever, something like that. It's just a very simple premise. Just go as long as you can, enjoy the scenery, enjoy the sort of abstract, sort of, cityscape, urban-esque visuals, and just go with it. There's no leaderboards, I guess, this time around. Just a real kind of cerebral experience this time. I know I'm big on arcade style experiences and points and leaderboards and dailies and weeklies and to compete to be the best type thing. But I wanted something about a little bit more contemplative, I guess, this time around. And that's it.
I like it.
That's the extent of it.
I think it's great.
Cool.
I don't think we've made many endless runners in our ad hoc designs.
Really? Because I feel like that's something I kind of fall back on more often than not. But you could be right. My memory could be shot.
No, I mean, you fall back on twin stick stuff.
That's also true.
Stuff that isn't, you run into a wall and you are game over.
Yeah, I guess. Okay, I guess that's right. Yeah.
But I like it. Endless runners remind me of games that I used to play in high school on my calculator, because there were some pretty good ones for that. But I like that the games that you make in particular generally aren't very story heavy, but the premises that you do make when you do are funny. So, I'm going to make myself this bizarre situation in which I'm going to use as my excuse to do insert genre here. So it's I don't know, it's enjoyable for me to read these.
Wow, that's very flattering. Thank you. I don't necessarily go for comedy, but hey, if you see a comedic angle of it, that's all the better, really.
Fair enough. Saxxon, you want to go next?
Yeah, I can go next. Let's see. So I wanted to start with I was thinking how I might be able to turn a fighting game on its head, and I think I found something that I'm satisfied with. The title is... What's that?
No, it's a bottom-up fighter. There we are.
A bottom-up fighter. A bottom-up shooter. All right. So title: Let's Fight You. Bang bang. Yes, the 2 bangs are necessary.
Bang bang.
It's what I call a body switch rhythm fighter.
Ooh.
What?
Ooh.
Yeah, and the idea is basically like, you are, you can kind of think of like a Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter type thing, and you have 2 combatants, but you don't play your own combatant, you play the opponent's combatant. You are trying to goad your opponent into hitting you, the one you're controlling. Basically, you are assuming the role of your opponent, and then you're trying to lose, thereby winning.
Oh, okay. Sounds like Prisoner's Dilemma, the fighting game. but
That's exactly what this is.
Okay.
And that's the thing, is Prisoner's Dilemma is actually relevant here, and that's because of the way that you have to play the game. So
please forward this to Author Blues.
Okay.
Anyway.
Yeah, right.
This is real good.
So you have to press or hold some kind of action on your controller that will translate into a movement being executed on the upcoming beat. So this is to music, and you have a defined beat, and so things are executed on that beat. If you hold up, whatever move you perform is going to be like the high variant of it. If you hold toward your opponent, it's the mid variant, and holding down is the low variant. And then you would combine that with a button, which will be for like a kick or a punch. And there are no explicit block buttons, but there is a form of blocking, and I'll talk about that in a second. You also don't move around the arena. So basically it's like, the 2 fighters are in a fixed position on the left and right side of the screen. Performing no action at all when a beat hits will cause you to repeat your previous action at twice the power, which means it will, if it lands, it will do twice the amount of damage, which is something you don't want. Like, it's not the end of the world if you miss a beat, but if you start letting these, inactions kind of stack up, eventually you're gonna land a blow that's going to cause you to, deplete your own health effectively. It's kind of weird because there's a difference between the fighter that you brought and the fighter that you're controlling. And so I'm going to need to figure out some kind of terminology to specify which is which. If on the same beat, both fighters perform the same move, it is considered blocked for both combatants and no damage is dealt to either. So, if you both, high kick at the same time, then it's basically just canceled. So let's see. There's also a special gauge, and it builds up as the fighter you are controlling receives hits. So it'll fill, it will fill up when it hits the max. A special move will be executed automatically. And the special move does a lot of damage, but it is still categorized under, high kick, low kick, that kind of thing. So it can still be blocked in very much the same way as you can block other abilities.
Does a special have to cancel a special?
No, a special can be canceled by anything. The only thing that really makes it a special is it deals increased damage.
Okay.
So, and it's, of course, going to be a lot more flashy and stuff compared to, like you're like basically time will stop and you'll see this kind of, special play out, much like how in fighting games, like, kind of time slows down and the background fades away or just explodes into animation, and, it's extremely dramatic. It will, the bar will drain while not taking hits. So if like you just end up blocking a whole bunch, it's gonna come down. So this kind of turns the meta into you trying to get you're trying to get your opponent to hit you and block your moves by kind of somewhat guessing like what they're going to do. So Prisoner's Dilemma, right? And that's pretty much the idea. So you're trying to get your opponent to, you're trying to anticipate what their move is going to be, and you're trying to fool them into guessing what you're going to guess. It kind of turns into like a rock, paper, scissors strategy type thing.
So you said this goes along to the beat. Like, what? Like how to frame this? Like how often does this beat happen?
Depends on the music. I mean, you can you can get it all the way down to say like a really slow boomy 80 BPM track, or if you want to start like kicking it up to higher difficulties, you can get into like house music, and then into trance music, and then into like hardcore and D&B if you want to start getting really nuts.
It's like that's what I was trying to think of. Like the rhythm game that always sticks in my mind is Crypt of the Necrodancer for these just wild actions per minute type stuff. Like how far ahead does your brain need to be to make this a viable thing? And of course I haven't really 100% figured out that game, so I'm trying to kind of conform that to this, and it's just my brain is exploding already.
So for this, because you are trying to get your opponent to block your hits, and you are also trying to get your opponent to like damage you, and you are trading blows. I suppose I should have put that in there, because otherwise like you'd be hitting each other like anytime you weren't blocking each other. So, but effectively, it's you are inputting what you plan to do the next time, like your stuff is ready to actually like play out. So if you happen to choose the same thing as your opponent does, then it gets blocked.
So is there a sort of speed or priority then assigned to these various different moves, like light, medium, heavy, like some traditional fighting games use?
Because there isn't arena movement, I don't feel like it's really going to offer a lot of value to have a priority system, because otherwise there's always going to be like one move that's just consistently like the best move.
I suppose.
However, I think that I might adjust this so that like you're taking turns basically like hitting each other, so basically it's every other beat then, and you will receive damage if there is a mismatch, but you will not receive damage if if there is a match between what you're pressing and what they're pressing.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just trying to square it in my mind. Like if it were, one action per beat from each player, then you're getting a whole lot of like everybody's taking damage all the time. Oops, double KO. Okay, try this again. And then
yeah, no, they wouldn't. They couldn't happen simultaneously with the way the blocking works, so they would have to take turns.
Okay.
So like player one would, like your beat is coming up and you're, let's say you're pressing high kick or whatever. During all that time, the other player is, deciding, okay, this is the particular attack that I'm going to block against. And what you're hoping is that you are not going to block, you're not going to pick the same thing that they did, right? But on your turn, when it flips around, you want to fool them into picking something different than what you have chosen.
I see. So you're seeing it as more of a trade-off between, okay, you're on offense, you're on defense for this beat, and then swapping back and forth. Okay. I get you. Well, cool. I'm not strictly a big fan of fighting games. One, because I suck at them, but this is probably something I would at least give a try because it's a very interesting premise.
I'm
just thinking.
I'm these are not the types of things that I would think of when trying to make a game, and that's great. And I'm amused by it, and I'm just kind of like, why can't I be this creative?
Well, everybody's creative in their own different ways.
I mean, if we're moving on to my stuff, I mean, I got very creative this time.
Well, see, there you go. See, you're creative.
Yeah,
what the heck are you talking about?
I brushed over it, and I'm really excited. Come on, let's go.
So, again, I use the game genre generator website that I did last time because it gives me something to go off of. It gives me constraints. So, it rolled real-time strategy plus educational.
Oh no, educational, the poison pill.
I know. And the theme was food. So I decided to make this a memory training game for kids. And in doing so, it would, when you're not playing in single player mode, it would encourage teamwork and communication. It would encourage optimization. It would encourage all of these other things that would, be beneficial to cognitive development. And I'm thinking it'd probably be like ages 6 to 9 or something like that.
Nice.
Wow.
Sorry, it's probably inappropriate.
Yeah, a little bit, but that's okay. The title for this game is Order Up, and it's, capitalized because, yeah, kids and exclamation points and stuff.
Excitement and emotion.
Indeed. So, players, I'd say honestly 1 through 8. I mean, if you can manage to get a bunch of kids to sit down and actually play something instead of crawling on each other and whatever else they do, cool. Input method, just simply a gamepad. Like, gamepads have big buttons, you have multiple ways to change the direction that you're moving and things like that. I think it'd be pretty accessible. Graphic style is just simple and undistracted. We want kids to be able to focus on exactly what they should be doing. The audio style would be fun and engaging, something silly, not super serious, intense. Like, just keeping it unobstructive. Point of view is going to be overhead. So essentially, you have this restaurant with seating and a kitchen, and you have your host who's seating people and also taking orders if you're playing in single player mode. Otherwise, you would have some characters that would, or rather some players that would be taking orders and referring them to the kitchen, and then somebody in the kitchen being like, okay, I need to go grab carrots and this other stuff. So the way that I have it set up in my mind is that, one, you'd have to remember which customer orders what. So you'd have to keep in mind where they're sitting. You'd have to understand after maybe 5 to 10 seconds of looking at okay, this is what they ordered, and it just shows you a picture of the ingredient and the word, the name for it next to it. And it would show that, pretty simple stuff, like 4 or 5 ingredients at most. Like, the game can get harder over time when it adds more ingredients. The amount of time that you can take to cook and serve is less. But essentially, the order is placed with the kitchen. The player gets to see, hey, you get your 10-second timer here to review what this is called, what you need, who needs to get what, and then which customer ended up ordering it. So it encourages people to be able to memorize these things. It doesn't necessarily punish wrong answers. Rather, it tries to spin it like something of a, oh, this is a new twist on this dish. I liked it, but it wasn't what I ordered. So you get a lower score, but at least it's not, like B rating them. So stuff like that. As the game goes on, you can get various cooking implements to make the cooking process faster. You can sharpen your knives after a while because vegetables will dull them. You can apron and hat because kids mess up. And you can customize that kind of stuff. And then various shoes to move around the kitchen and not slip and things like that. So that's pretty much the gist of it. It's to remember orders, cook them in the proper order, deliver them to the appropriate customers, and help keep that reputation of the restaurant strong. I came up with some sort of little demo story that you can change to be almost anything, but I came up with an example of the staff of a busy and highly successful restaurant were all very tired and needed some time off. But with popularity surging, the restaurant was booked out for months. As an enterprising and talented chef, you and your team decided to help and give the crew the time off they deserve. Something simple. So, that's pretty much the gist of it. I remember, like playing the memory game with flashcards being turned over, and you'd have to like try to pair things up and things like that. So it's kind of like that. Obviously, the ingredients in the kitchen are not going to be something we need to turn over and discuss or discover what they are, but it's a memory building game. It encourages people to communicate effectively. It involves teamwork and other stuff. And that's about it.
Based purely on the theme, as you described it, like working in a restaurant, etc., I would recommend looking at Overcooked and Overcooked 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's very similar. Like when I came up with this, I was just kind of like, okay, so let's make a kid's version of this that doesn't literally start things on fire.
All right, gotcha. Yeah, because that's exactly where my mind snapped to as soon as you got through like 75% of the description. Like, oh yeah, that sounds like Overcooked, and
Yep.
it is very much not quite like Overcooked isn't very much on the educational side of things, which is whatever. But there's other cooking games I can think of, like Cook Serve Delicious. There's probably some, we were talking about DS and 3DS games earlier. I think there's some variants of that would also work very well.
Sure.
But yeah, there's definitely its own unique spin on it. So I can appreciate you starting with the constraints, like the theme and whatever else was generated as part of that. Like I get that. Like sometimes you need, when you've got everything at your disposal, it's hard to make a decision on something sometimes. So it's I get that 100%.
Yeah, for sure. So that's what I came up with this month. I'm likely going to continue using this method to generate interesting ideas and form constraints so that I can work within them. It's my favorite style of music composition. It's going to be probably my favorite way to come up with zany things that I otherwise wouldn't.
Right? And 82 rounds in, sometimes we need a little something to start with. Because boy howdy, is it tough to, oh, did I do this before? Did I do this before? Probably, but yeah, I get you. All right, well, cool. We're very, very good, first of all. We're coming to the end of round 82. Is there anything else that we may have forgotten? Mostly saying that for myself, that we need to let fly before we end tonight.
I mean, I'll ramble forever if you let me.
Well,
okay, we're not doing the full.
We don't want to do that. But I figured I'd give everyone else their fair shake at, suddenly remembered. No? Okay.
Yeah, I
good.
think that's pretty much it. It was really nice to get back on track and be back on the show and stuff. So
yeah, good. I mean, I like that everybody's kind of flexible with all this, because I know with the world and the state that it is, it's really difficult from a very serious perspective to kind of do these weird things. Like, I'm not saying our stuff is weird. No, that's not true.
Yeah.
I am saying our stuff is weird. But to do these kind of like, oh, it's not worth anything, and it's not true. It's worth very much now. I think more than ever, like to do these things. And so I appreciate both of you continuing to stick by it. And we'll keep doing this because it's a great outlet, and two, I think it's very good for us just in general to have these kind of creative things going, and maybe nothing comes of them. Maybe we don't ever make these designs, knock on wood. But I think it's just nice to have this little exercise of it. It's very good. It's turned out more things that I'd really like to do. Like, it's really cool and fun to hear about these things. But even if they even if they just they stay ideas, it's really awesome. So I appreciate both of you for doing that.
Yeah, of course.
So with that, I think we're going to wrap it up for tonight. This has been Insert Credits Round 82. I'm MrBond.
I'm Tormod.
And I'm Saxxon.
We'll leave you with our typical closing track, a remix from Mario Kart Wii entitled Wind in Your Hair by Overclocked University. Good night, everybody.
Ciao.
Adios.